This time of year, I usually get a ton of requests for soup recipes, and I thought I would tie in. You guys were loving that video I did on the keto budget. If you haven't seen it, click up here. It's how you can make 84 meals feeding a family of 4 for a week for just $40. Super cool video. I'll have it linked down below for you guys too. But you guys were wanting like another keto budget video, so I thought what a cool way to tie in making keto soups along with how to save money too. Let's do some budget-friendly keto soup recipes. I'm going to go on walmart.com because I want to see if I can get each of these keto soup recipes to be less than $5 a recipe. Now, some of these recipes have overlapping ingredients too, so that's going to help me save money. Groceries are ordered. Let's go pick them up. The thing that I like about curbside pickup at Walmart is that I know exactly what I'm getting and how much I'm spending. I mean, sure, there may be out of some products sometimes, but for the most part, you know exactly what you're spending. So that's a tip for you guys, is to do curbside pickup just to watch your budget. We are going to dive on into these keto soup recipes. I'm going to show you how to make them. I'm going to tell you what the macros are, and we're going to go over the pricing. Plus, I'm going to give you some more tips on how to save money when you're on the keto diet. The first soup we're going to start with is my Keto Chicken Noodle Soup. And yes, this does have noodles in it. We're going to make our own keto egg noodles. In a large stock pot, we're going to add 2 tablespoons of butter and melt that down. And then we're going to add in 1/2 cup of diced onion, 3 stalks of celery that you've sliced up, and 1/4 cup of chopped carrots. Now I know you're probably going to think, well, carrots aren't keto, but we're only using 1/4 cup of chopped carrots, so it hardly adds any carbs to this. 1/4 cup of chopped carrots will add around 2 grams of net carbs for the entire soup, so that's hardly anything, especially if this serves around like 4 to 6 people. You want to cook these until your vegetables are just tender. You don't want to overcook it until they're softened, because the veggies will continue to cook as they're simmering in the broth, and you don't want to end up with like mushed veggies. Then you're going to add in your chicken broth. This is 3 cups of chicken broth going in here, and I'm going to stick in a bay leaf. This is optional. You don't have to use that if you don't want to, but if you do have some lying around your pantry and want to use up some of your bay leaves, this is a great time to add some flavor. Then we're going to bring this to a boil and then reduce the heat to a simmer, and you're going to let it cook uncovered. And while your chicken soup is cooking, then we're going to move on to making our keto egg noodles. To make these noodles, you're going to need 1 cup of almond flour, a tablespoon of xanthan gum. You could use agar powder too if you want to as a replacement. 1/2 teaspoon of salt. You're going to whisk it together until it's combined, and then you're going to add in 1/3 cup of hot water. Along with 1 egg. Mix it together until it forms a dough ball, and then we're going to put this down in between 2 sheets of parchment paper, flatten it out, and roll it till it's about like 1/8 of an inch to 1/4 of an inch thick. Then you're going to cut off your noodles. You can do a thick noodles if you want some thick noodles in your chicken noodle soup, or thinner strips if you prefer that. Lay them down on a parchment paper, and you can either let these air dry, or I like to pop mine in a 200-degree oven for around 15-20 minutes or so. This will just help set the noodles. If you were to add your noodles straight to your broth, it still works, but they're a little bit more mushy and they tend to dissolve like the longer they're in there. Once your egg noodles are ready, you can add them to your soup. Just make sure you remove your soup beforehand so that it's not too hot, and you're ready to serve. The macros for this soup, for 1 bowl, if we're going to divide it into 4 servings, it's 282 calories, 11.3 grams of fat, 22.5 grams of protein, and it's only 3.2 net carbs. This keto soup recipe comes to around $6.30. Some ways to save more money on this recipe and to get a little bit more cost effective is to actually make your own chicken broth. So you can purchase chicken legs or chicken thighs from the store and then put them in a pot of water and then let that boil for around like an hour and a half or so. You will make your own chicken broth that way, and it makes up a large amount, especially if you keep on adding water to it, and it's healthy because it's chicken bone broth. So that's one way that you can save money, and you can use that on all of these recipes here that I'm giving you that do require chicken broth. Another way is to just completely omit the noodles. You could actually go with maybe a vegetable instead. Cabbage is a really good substitute for a low carb chicken noodle soup, along with you can use bean sprouts if you wanted to. Zucchini noodles would be fabulous in this too. So that would they'd probably be cheaper than making your own almond flour egg noodles. I just love that comfort food, that noodle part in there, and it's delicious to me when you make it like this on its own, and it's super simple too. You can serve this chicken noodle soup with some low carb rolls. I have a recipe for some delicious keto bread rolls that everybody raves about. I did do a video on it already. You can click up here to watch it, or I'll have it listed down below in the description box, or just Google search KetoFocus rolls and you'll find it. Since we're on the topic of saving money, I wanted to take a quick minute to thank our sponsor, which is Built Bar. These are keto-friendly protein bars. It's a great post-workout snack meal replacement bar for you guys that's keto-friendly, and you can save money when you use the link down below in the description box. You'll get 20% off your order. They have all kinds of delicious flavors, so whatever your taste preference is, they'll have a flavor for you. Plus, these are loaded with protein, so they're going to keep you full until your next meal. Up next, let's make some clam chowder. This is one of my favorite recipes. It is a keto clam chowder. In a medium saucepan or a Dutch oven, you're gonna melt down some butter. And then we'll add in half a cup of diced onion, 3 sliced up celery stalks, and a 1/4 cup of red bell pepper. I like to use the red bell pepper in this recipe as a replacement for the carrots, but you could go with carrots if you want to. Cook this until your veggies are softened, and then we're gonna add in some arrowroot powder. I'm using arrowroot powder as a thickener. I always have it on hand. It's a great keto thickener because it's low in carbs, and it thickens more than flour does, so just a little bit goes a long way. We're gonna stir in some chicken broth and then add in your clams. These are canned clams. I'm gonna use the entire can plus the juice. And then whisk in your heavy cream. An option here is to use a daikon radish if you want to. This is an added expense, but it just gives that potato-like feeling. Like all clam chowder has potatoes. This recipe does not use potatoes because potatoes are higher in carbs, but we can substitute to get that same flavor or texture by using a radish. And I like to use daikon radish because it looks just like a potato, and it takes on the flavor of the soup too, so it doesn't taste weird. We'll add our seasonings, which is 1 bay leaf, a 1/2 teaspoon of salt, and a 1/2 teaspoon of pepper. Bring it to a boil and then let it simmer for around 15 minutes. Another option is to top this with some crumbled bacon. It's super delicious, but it does add an extra expense onto your keto $5 soup. And actually, when I calculated out the cost of this soup recipe, it's actually less than $5. It came to $3.05. That is if you use chicken broth that we already made from our chicken noodle soup. If you wanted to use the box kind from Walmart or wherever, it would probably add an additional 30 cents. The macros on this soup, for 1 serving, it's around 200 calories. It's 204 calories. The fat is 17.6 grams, protein is 4.3 grams, and the net carbs are 2.6 grams. So this is a little bit higher in carbs just because clams do have carbs in them, but you can decrease that if you want to. Add less clams, decrease some of the vegetables, and you will bring down your net carbs. But it would fit into your macros, especially if you only are having 2 or 3 meals a day and your net carbs are around 5 grams. This recipe is already inexpensive, but if you did want to save some money, then I would just not put in maybe the bell pepper, decrease some of the onion, maybe only do half a can of clams. Although you already bought the 1 can, so you might as well just throw the whole thing in there. But again, using chicken broth that you've already made will help here too. Up next, let's turn a cheeseburger into a soup. We're gonna be making keto cheeseburger soup. This recipe is so good and it has so many different toppings and add-ons you can do to it, but we're just gonna make the bare bones version, but I'll tell you what you could add to it to make it even more tastier. In a large stock pot, we're gonna add 1 pound of ground beef and cook it over medium heat until it's brown. Remove your ground beef from your stock pot, set it aside, and we're gonna cook our veggies. In the same pot, we're gonna add some butter, a 1/4 cup of diced onion, a 1/4 cup of red bell pepper, and 3 stalks of celery that are chopped up. Cook that until your veggies are softened. That'll take around 3 to 5 minutes. Next, we're gonna add back in our ground beef. At this point, if you wanted to add some of that daikon radish, you could do that. Many of the traditional cheeseburger soup recipes actually use potato. They use it more as like a thickener, but if you wanted that, potato texture in there, you could add a daikon radish in there, but it's more expensive. And then I'm gonna add 1 teaspoon of arrowroot powder as a thickener, but the soup doesn't really need a thickener just because it does have the heavy cream and the cheese, which is gonna thicken it naturally. Bring your soup to a boil and then turn down the heat and let it simmer for around 10 to 12 minutes. Next, we're gonna remove it from the heat and we're gonna stir in 2 cups of grated cheddar cheese, along with 1 cup of heavy cream. Then you'll add in salt and pepper for seasoning. Now this keto cheeseburger soup is delicious just like this, or we could add on some fun toppings. You can put on some crumbled bacon, some more diced onions, some more cheese on there, tomato, shredded lettuce, like pretty much anything that you would put on a burger, you could add to the top, and it's really good. I especially like the iceberg lettuce just because it kind of gives it like this little crunchy feel with each bite. This low carb soup is a little bit more keto friendly per serving, and it makes around 6 servings. It's 582 calories and 51.3 grams of fat, 24.7 grams of protein, and the net carbs are 3.1 grams. Now the soup did clock in at a little bit above $5. If you make your own chicken broth, it comes at around $6.69. Still an inexpensive keto meal, especially if you're feeding 6 people. I hope this video gave you guys some great keto recipe ideas, as well as some money-saving tips when it comes to sticking with your keto diet without breaking your budget.